Over here now to Chuck. Rich wrote us a question in the email. He says, I have a shared fence with a neighbor that's leaning towards their side. It was already like this, he says, when he bought the house months ago. They wrote to Rich that they had the fence completely replaced, including new posts back in 2008. So what are we talking about? 15 years ago or so? That's why they have a picket side facing them, the neighbors. I guess that's pretty standard, right? The picket side should be going, shouldn't the picket side go to,
my understanding is it goes towards the neighbors.
it goes to neighbors. Well, then it should have been going towards Rich's house, not towards the neighbors who paid for it, right? That's my understanding as well.
And the question is, whose land does it really sit on? I can't say as I see a whole lot of shared fences. Now, some people will do it, on a farm or, things like that. But typically, one person or the other owns the fence. And you can usually tell, do a survey, see which side it's on. The problem that I see arising is when property A puts up a fence, but whoops, it sits on property B. That's when you need a lawyer to get involved and draw up some paperwork. Otherwise, you'd have to pull up the fence and put it back on your property.
Well, that's great advice, because Rich is saying that the neighbors wrote him a letter asking him to address and correct the falling fence. However, Rich is saying, I don't believe I'm responsible for the repairs. So who's responsible?
Well, you use the phrase shared fence. If it's a shared fence, chances are there's a shared fence agreement. Normally what you see is a shared driveway agreement. I can't say as I've really seen a whole lot of shared fences. But if it is a shared fence, there's a shared fence agreement, and that agreement should point out who owes, who is supposed to do the repairs and that sort of thing.
But if there's no shared fence agreement, we go back to getting a
where does it
survey?
Yeah,
which side
where does it sit?
Yeah. So if it's on your side, and what happens if it's on both sides? If it's right down the middle or it goes back and forth, then they share the expense? Is that what you would suggest?
No, then you have to. There is no quick answer to that scenario. Right. That's why I always say apple pie diplomacy. You need to get two people to be reasonable and make a decision. If it is on both properties and they don't mind where it's at, well, let's get an agreement together saying, hey, this fence sits here, this fence sits here. This is who's responsible for maintenance and these amounts, et cetera, et cetera. At a variety of camps down in Litchfield, I've put together agreements like this, and you state out who owes what to whom and who does the repairs. Absent that, then it's just a couple of guys that can either agree reasonably or take it to court.